Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Binge-Worthy Bites, where I discuss all of the binge-worthy shows out there. And I've actually picked episode 1, season 7 of Black Mirror. So this episode is all about the complexities of subscription services and basically how everyone will basically do everything they can in order to make some money. So if you want to listen to this recap about what has happened in this episode, go ahead and stay tuned. So the episode starts off with Mike and Amanda, and they're in the bed together. And Amanda's phone actually goes off and lets us know that it's their 3-year anniversary. And this couple seems to be pretty fun-loving, very connected, very intimate, which is crazy just based on all the stuff that's going to happen later on in this episode as their relationship breaks down. But I won't give too much of a spoiler. And from there, we actually transition over to Amanda's job, where we learn that she's an elementary school teacher. And the students seem to really love her because they come up to her after class with their issues, and she seems to be very, very empathetic with them, very nurturing and very loving. So it's crazy how things will start to disintegrate over time, but even it seems like the teachers love her. She seems very connected at the school. So we go into this next scene, and Mike is outside waiting for Amanda to come outside. And this is kind of where I feel like you can kind of see their financial situation for what it is, just based on the car that Mike drives, that he has to pick her up, and even the place that they're going to celebrate their anniversary. And even one of the teachers says, "Are you going to do anything special?" And he was like, "No, we're going to another SHIT hole." So basically that kind of lets us know that they don't really have the funds or the money in order to do anything that they want to do. So this kind of just speaks to their financial situation and what they're going to have to do in order to address that later on in the episode. So the couple then arrives to Juniper Lodge, and this is where you kind of see the financial situation a little bit more, I feel like, because when Mike brings her to this lodge, he mentions that he actually brought her here for their marriage as well. So their financial struggles, I feel like, have always existed throughout their entire marriage. So as they get here, basically they order a burger and fries, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to the anniversary, kind of the tradition is that you kind of go out and you do something upscale. So this kind of speaks to the financial burdens that they're already going through. And then the scene transitions over into their hotel room. And this is where you can kind of see that Amanda's having some fertility issues, and she's also having some headaches. So as she gets up from postcoitus, as she calls it, basically Mike has to hand her some headache medication because she's been struggling with some pain in her head for some time now. And we'll figure out why in just a few moments. So the couple then returns home from their anniversary, which seems to actually go pretty well. And once they come home, we transition over to this scene where we talk a little bit more about Amanda's fertility issues. And basically they have a crib, which is also going to play out at the end of this episode. But we see this crib in this room, and it's got all of this stuff inside of it. So for me, it seems like they have been trying for a kid for a very long time and have been very unsuccessful with it. And from this point, you also see a little bit of Amanda's emotional state. She really feels like they should just get rid of it. They should stop trying. So this kind of speaks a little bit more to the depth of their relationship and how things are affecting them. Now we've got a background about Mike and Amanda, but now we need to figure out a little bit more about Mike's job. And Mike actually works at a construction site, and he works with one of the most annoying coworkers you could ever see in your entire life. He's super childish, and he spends most of his time watching Dumb Dummies. And Dumb Dummies is actually going to play out further on in the episode, but basically people go on there who are desperate for money, and they pull out teeth, do all kinds of crazy stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And they basically do this all to get some money. Everybody's desperate at this point, which is why I feel like it points to the title of this episode, which is Common People. So doing everything you can in order to make money in order to survive. So from there, we actually transition back to Amanda, and she's at school teaching all of these beautiful kids. And essentially she starts feeling a little woozy. She starts kind of looking around and she passes out. So then Mike is actually contacted, and that's when they have to go to the hospital, because I think at this point all of Amanda's headaches is starting to catch up with her. At this point, Mike is really worried about Amanda because the doctor actually tells him that there has been a growing tumor on Amanda's brain, and they're not really sure if she's going to ever become conscious again. And this is where I want to stop and talk about the title of this, Common People, because I'm assuming, because even though she's had all these headaches and she has to take medication for them, I'm sure that she doesn't have the insurance to be able to continuously go to the hospital to seek treatment. talent. So I think that's one of the standalone themes in this, is that they just don't have the funds in order to do the things that they need to do. But anyways, Mike actually continues to talk to the doctor, and this is where we meet the new character. So then we're introduced to Bete Noire, and Bete Noire is a Rivermind employee, but not only that, she uses their technology for herself because she lets Mike know that she was involved in an accident where she basically didn't have any access to her brain, and through Rivermind she was able to gain back consciousness, and now she walks the world freely. And I feel like this is where she starts to entice him in a lot more, because it really sells to Mike, because he really loves Amanda and he wants her to live. But basically she lets him know of how this technology works, and basically they take an imprint of your brain and they remove the damaged tissue and replace it with synthetic material, and basically that material connects back to Rivermind's server and allows Amanda to live as she normally did. But it seems like all of this is too good to be true. And to be honest, to me, it sounded like it was when she said the surgery was going to be free. A free surgery doesn't sound good, to be quite honest. It seems like something's going to come with it, and it does. She lets him know that there's going to be a subscription model behind of it, and it's going to be $300 a month. Now with this couple, we already know that they already don't have the funds to even cover an anniversary dinner, let alone to have $300 to give to a subscription service per month. So this is where things kind of start to go sideways, because we know Mike is going to have to do something strange for a piece of change. The surgery was actually a success for Amanda and everything went well. But now it is September and Mike is having to work more and more and more in order to appease this subscription service. He's having to do overtime, so get up hours early, even 2 hours at some points. And even at some point, he has to work every single day in order to meet overtime. So we can see how this is going to actually strain on Mike in just a moment. He's really going to start getting irritated, uncomfortable, and I feel like he's going to start blaming Amanda for this too. Now we fast forwarded some months into the future and Mike and Amanda are on their way to go celebrate their next anniversary. But Mike and Amanda start to really go back and forth. They start to talk about how tired Mike is, how he's exhausted, how he has to work so much. And Amanda feels slighted at this point. She really starts to feel undermined because she feels like now Mike is blaming her because she had to have the surgery and now they have to have this subscription service. And as they're going back and forth and they're going into Palmer County, they basically pass the county line and Amanda literally just glitches out. She just stops and she just passes out. So this is going crazy at this point. Now things are really taking a sharp left. And now we're going to have to go visit Bete Noire and talk about all of the complexities of this subscription service. Like, girl, what are we supposed to do about this? So the couple arrives to go to see Bete Noire and she really kind of makes it like it's not really that big of a deal. She lets them know, oh, you've passed outside of our servers. And basically Mike is like, I'll look this up before we started traveling. And she lets them know that on Monday, they're basically upgrading their towers to go to a national level. And Palmer County is outside of their reach. So that's why Amanda actually passed out while they was on their way to Palmer County. And she lets them know this is where things start to get very annoying for me. Basically, she lets them know that they're going to have to up their subscription. They're already struggling for money as is. And basically, in order to bump their subscription up a peg, essentially they're going to have to pay an extra $500 on top of the existing $300 that they're already having to pay. So now they're up to $800 in order to have Amanda live and be able to travel outside of the county that they currently reside in. So the couple actually denies the service, and this is where things really start going crazy for me. Basically, now that they didn't upgrade, Amanda's now spewing out ads. So because she didn't purchase like the premium and she didn't upgrade, I mean, this sounds so much like us in real life. Like we literally have to pay for ads and everything in order for them not to be on our service. So this felt so close to home because I pay for all of my subscriptions to not have ads. So this kind of ticked me off just a little bit. But this is where Amanda really starts to kind of pay for it not paying for it. So essentially she starts spewing out this honey nug ad in front of all of her students, and she doesn't even know that she's doing it. And throughout the episode, she also does it to her husband. She starts to talk about erectile dysfunction medication to him, and then she also goes up to her principal and talks about another ad for dating for singles over 50. And then one of the students that she was talking to in the beginning of the episode who didn't have the money to buy shoes, she walks past her and she like spews to her a shoe company. So at this point, Amanda's subscription service is really kicking in, and they're basically making her pay for not purchasing the advanced package. At this point, the couple is actually reasonably mad because she's spewing out all of these different ads and she doesn't even know it. And when they go to Bete Noire, she's like, oh yeah, basically we're actually implementing this new service. If you have to do that, then that means that you need to upgrade your service. And I just start getting very annoyed with Bete Noire's character because it's like she never ever tells them 100% what they need to do in order to fulfill these subscriptions. They have to go back to her every single time, and then she lets them know, oh, that's nothing, you just have to upgrade. And she kind of treats it like a pat on the back. This is not what she told Mike in the beginning. She essentially let him know that it was all free and that they're only gonna have to pay for one subscription. She never told them they were gonna have to come back and continuously upgrade. So in a way, I do feel like that she misled them, but at this point too, Amanda actually gets fired from her job. This is where Mike actually steps in because they're struggling to pay for all of this stuff, and he really wants Amanda to live a normal life. So he does the unspeakable, and he does what he thought he would never have to do. He gets on Dumb Dummies and he starts to do all of the things that he swore he probably would never do. And the first time that he actually gets on Dumb Dummies, he drinks his own urine. Now this is where I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to log out of this episode. This is disgusting. He literally drinks his own urine. And then the next time he puts a rat trap on his tongue. So if you're hard at watching disgusting stuff, this might not be the episode for you, but that's what he does in order to appease the subscription service. And this lets us know they're really strapped for cash at this point. Now that Mike has done the unspeakable and he drinks his own urine and goes through the whole rat trap situation, they have to return back to Bete Noire once again. I was like, if y'all have to go back to her one more time, she's literally only going to tell them that they have to upgrade their service again. And Amanda is looking so exhausted. She's been trying to sleep, but she's not feeling well rested. So when they ask Bete Noire why that is, she's basically let them know that Amanda is in sleep mode, but that doesn't mean that she's going to rest because her brain is basically keeping their server alive. That is why she is not looking well rested, even though she's sleeping for like 12 to 16 hours per day. And from that point, Bete Noire gives them another option. I was like, oh, this is never going to end. She gives them the option of upgrading to Rivermind Luxe. So this is another tier of this subscription. I think this might be the third or fourth tier at this point. And basically with this one, it comes with a new app. It comes with new sensations, and you can even tap into the skills of other people. So when they're like, okay, well, what's the price? It's another $1,000 on what top of they're already paying now. So that will be $1,800 a month for them in order to keep Amanda alive and thriving without ads and being able to travel. So now we're seeing the implications of this. This was not a free surgery at all, because on the back end, this couple is having to pay over and over again in order to keep this thing going. At this point, Mike is really looking for other ways to make some cash. And the way he does that is by turning back to Dumb Dummies, which I don't understand why he always wants to go back there. He could easily do something else to make money. And at this point too, he wants to take Amanda off for their anniversary and surprise her, but he can't because of the money. And somebody actually offers him $500 in order to take his mask off. And I'm not sure why he does that, because his coworker actually watches this pretty regularly. So you already know people are going to find out about this. But even though none of this kind of seems to bother him, he goes ahead and he takes Amanda off for their trip, and he surprises her with a Riverlux little gift card, and this allows her to purchase pleasure for the evening. And I'm not sure why he purchased pleasure. I mean, they could have went for anything in order to make some money, but they decide of all things just to do pleasure. I was like, this is where they started losing me, to be quite honest. At this point, the couple returns home and Mike goes back to work, and lo and behold, his co-worker has plastered a picture of him doing what he was doing in the video, which was kind of pleasuring himself using a piece of object. I don't want to say it on YouTube because it'll get me banned, but he uses it in his bum. And basically everybody sees it, and he literally starts beating this guy up because he has blasted this guy to all his coworkers, making him embarrassed and lose respect at work. But throughout this altercation, basically he falls, his coworker, and he gets smashed by a piece of machinery, which if you watch this episode, you know that thing is freaking huge, and it literally squishes this guy. He doesn't die, but I'm assuming that he might be disabled at this point. And now Mike is really feeling the implications of all of this, and all of this is just to pay for a subscription service. Mike actually gets fired for this incident at work, and the couple starts feeling pretty desperate. So then they kind of start spiraling out of control just a little bit, and they return back to Bete Noire again. And at this point, I can really tell she's really not caring about them. She's not empathetic to their situation. She's not really even trying to help them. And that's kind of how the subscriptions look for us. They don't really care if we have the money to pay for it or not. They're like, either you pay for it or don't. And that's kind of how Bete Noire acts in this episode, especially in this part. And they kind of mention that they're trying to get pregnant, and Bete Noire's like asking so many questions. She's like, pregnant? Are you trying to get pregnant? And they're like, why are you asking us this question? And she lets them know that it's going to be an additional $90 if they get pregnant, because it plays so much on the woman's brain. So at this point, the couple is just like, screw it. And they just walk out of her office. This is a crazy good episode. So time passes by, and it is a year later, and as you can see, Amanda is not doing good at all. She's literally drained from sleeping all the time and basically powering the Rivermind server. So at this point, I feel like the couple in the background has had conversations about how they're basically gonna let Amanda go. And so at this point, Mike gives her another little gift card from Rivermind, and this allows her to tap into the sensation of serenity and just basically be at peace for one last time. And after this, Mike basically suffocates Amanda with a pillow, and this is something that they've discussed because she seems to be okay with it as the episode nears the end. And this is basically where things close, and Mike is just sobbing on the ground. And that's how this episode wraps up. What did you think about this episode overall? What did you think about the subscriptions? I really want to know what you think about all of it, because it was such a good episode, and it really speaks to how things are really operating right now, which is why sometimes Black Mirror to me gets a little scary, because sometimes it gets a little bit too realistic. But I would love to know your thoughts down below, and I can't wait to upload episode 2 and talk about the next one, because that one is even better.